Hello, good evening, everyone. I don't know if you can all hear me, but I'd like to start off by thanking you all for finding the time and the opportunity to be with us, whether you're joining us on Zoom and also watching us live on YouTube. We'd like to thank you very much. So I'd like to start us off. And today we are going to be speaking about cyber fraud. And of course, it has destroyed the societal value of hard work and reward. And sadly, it has become a menace for many African societies, especially among the youthful population who have tied financial liberty and youthful exuberance to engaging in cyber fraud. And today we want to see how can we discourage this and share alternative routes to financial freedom. And today on my panel, I am joined by Mayowa. Olumayo Okiderian is the Managing Director of African Liberty and Director of International Programs at Students for Liberty. He is a member of the Council of West Africa Policy Fellow at the South African Institute of Race Relations and as a Nigerian Policy Fellow at the Consumer Choice Center. His views on politics, economics, and human freedom have been translated into 16 languages, including French, Spanish, Czech, Portuguese, just to mention a few. He has completed a master's degree in humanitarian refugee studies at the University of Ibadan. He is an alumnus of the Atlas think tank MBA and holds professional certificates in strategic foresight from the University of Houston and in financial journalism from the Gordon School of Business Center, University of Pretoria. He is also the author of Navigate, a prospection in Nigeria's future to 2030. Mayowa, if you can hear me, you can maybe just say hello.
Hello, thank you very much for.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Japheth Omojuwa, who is the founder and chief strategist at the Alpha Reach, one of Nigeria's foremost digital media companies. He is the convener of the Conversations on Democracy and Development with hashtag Coded 2019, one of the most talked about conferences in Africa in 2019. His book, Digital, The Code of Wealth, broke social media and sales records in its first month of release. Omojuwa is on the board of several companies and organizations, including the Convention on Business Integrity, founded by Nigeria's Vice President, Yemi. Just to mention a few, he's a renowned international speaker and has addressed audiences across all of Africa's regions, Europe, North, South, and Central America, often leading conversations, challenges, and opportunities in Africa, new media democracy and governance. He was a guest lecturer at the Free University in Berlin, where he lectured on the impact of new media on civil disturbance. He is currently, he is currently pursuing an MSc in behavior change at the Faculty of Brain Sciences, University College, London, having won the Chevening Scholarship for that purpose. JJ, if you can hear us, kindly just say hello to the audience.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. Our last speaker is Rian, who is a writing fellow and communications intern at African Liberty. He is currently an undergraduate student at Stellenbosch University, studying Bachelor of Arts in Political, Philosophical, and Economic Studies. Rian, kindly say hi.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Sham. I am the regional coordinator for Sudan and Uganda with African Students for Liberty. And I'd like to get just deep and just direct into the topic of today. Mayowa, I'd like to begin with you. You know, cyber fraud may seem to be a new term to some people. So could you maybe just try and share with the audience what cyber fraud is and how it works?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh yeah, so my understanding of cyber fraud would be, the use of a computer or an electronic device as an instrument to perpetuate fraud, or basically to further illegal ends. Trafficking.
Sorry, Maya, we lost you.
Can you hear me now? Is it clearer?
Yes, now it's clearer.
Oh yeah. So I was saying that it's it's the use of a computer or an instrument or an electronic device to perpetrate fraud. And fraud could be in different ways. It could be intellectual property theft. It could be stealing of identities. It could be basically violating privacy. Stealing of. So all of this you categorize as frauds that are perpetrated by using a computer or an electronic device.
Thank you very much. Rian, Maya has tried to mention a few activities that can be considered as cyber fraud. Could you maybe probably just go deep into some of these?
So some of the activities range from, I think the most common one is email phishing. So it's basically sending an email with a link attached to it, and then people click on the link, input personal information or financial information. So the most common one is banking details, and that's how those sorts of banking details get out to perpetrators, and they empty out bank accounts of individuals. So that's the most common type of financial fraud or cyber fraud. But they range from sending emails about job offers that are false to steal personal information as well. The most common one that we are experiencing today is via social media platforms. So things like Forex scams and Ponzi schemes are being advertised on these platforms as a get-rich-quick money-making scheme. And it particularly targets vulnerable individuals who are financially desperate, such as older people or younger people. And they all work on the premise of selling you this idea of low risk and high reward. And what they do is they obviously market it to you in a way that captures that need, and they prey upon that need, and then they get you to input your financial information wherever their platforms are. How you see that it's particularly effective is they would create an email website in the name of a bank, of a popular bank like ABSA or Nedbank, but they would change the last details on that email, so the last letter, for instance. So if it's an email that says that is supposed to say .au, it would just be .av, and people, financially desperate people, are not going to necessarily look at the details of an email URL and unsuspectingly click on it and give away their financial information inadvertently.
Thank you. JJ, I'd like to move to you next. We are speaking about quick money, and of course, myself included, I just, love to, basically just sleep one night and wake up the next day and find myself rich. Probably skip all the years of toil, all the years of getting to sweat, and walking into, interview rooms, interviewed, being rejected, applying, being rejected, and I just love to get to a point that I am able to do everything I want, or basically I am financially stable. So no matter the term quick money may sound catchy and easily manipulates young people to do whatever they need to get money quick, what is the root cause of this? Why why is it that youths are actually doing this? What are some of the reasons that are pushing youths to, go towards this direction?
First of all, I need to say that this is not limited to young people. This is just human nature. It's very natural as a person to want to get to your destination as fast as possible. That's why we always prefer shortcuts if you're going on a location. That's why we're trying to fly faster. That's why we're building machines that are faster, that do things better. So the desire to be successful, to make money in and of itself is not a bad thing. That's why we go to work. That's why we seek for promotion. That's why we get more degrees. That's why we learn new skills, because we want to earn more money. The root cause of cyber fraud is greed. It's really as simple as that. It's greed, because you think that you deserve more than other people. You think that you should have faster than other people, and you don't factor in the kind of value that you're giving to society. If you're not giving a $1 million worth of value to society, why are you desperate to have $1 million? You need to go and work, do certain legal things to earn $1 million. So for me, the question definitely is greed. If people were not greedy, they would be fine with making gradual progress as either professionals, as students, as a dad or as a mom. The main reason why people would go out of their way, and I mean it on both sides, it's not just the person, for instance, in the case of the phishing, it's not just the person sending the email, it's also quite a lot of the victims. They are just as selfish as the criminals. Because if, excuse me with the noise. They're just as selfish, because if I send you an email that I have
Sorry, JJ, we lost you. Well, while we wait for JJ to probably work on his internet, Mayowa, considering the root cause of the problem, how dangerous is cyber fraud, and who is most vulnerable?
Cyber fraud is extremely dangerous. Not only is it dangerous with respect to, the reputation of the country. For example, you'd find that many Nigerians who are law-abiding citizens and who have legitimate businesses bear the brunt of the criminal activities of other Nigerians who choose to engage in cyber fraud. So it's, aside from the dangers of having to steal from victims, there is also the major problem of the reputation of other law-abiding citizens. So it needs to be tackled as aggressively as possible, not only with the use of the law, but also with by people a sort of orientation amongst not only, like Japheth said, it's not just only young people, but older people, everyone who has a tendency to engage in this criminal activity. There should be some sort of orientation. You and I should be orientating our friends or family who may be engaged in this sort of thing, just to ensure that we don't bear the brunt of their activities. Because no matter how you look at it, the more people engage in cyber fraud, the more likelihood that you, as an innocent, law-abiding citizen, would, in one way or the other, be victimized, even if you are not engaged in that, in that fraudulent activity.
Thank you very much. JJ, I see you are back, and you mentioned and said that it's not only youths that are probably susceptible to cyber fraud. And you see, for us to be able to speak about this, it means that this is something that has been on the rise. It means that this is something that is probably growing, and it means that every day the perpetrators of this, regardless of whichever method or channel they use to steal from people, they continue to get clients, for the lack of a better term, for their activities. So is it that we are not enlightened enough on these issues, on the issue about cyber fraud? Or is it that, like as you said, is it that our greed at the end of the day at times just overclouds our thinking and our ability to just reason with the facts that we are seeing in front of us, to be able to determine whether what we are being enticed to do, or whether the link we are being enticed to click on is a legit one or not? Why are we continuously being victims of being of cyber fraud?
I'm sorry, I'm up protesting, so my sound is a bit bad, and I didn't want to ask for a postponement. I would say that number one is opportunity. People are repeatedly exposed to opportunities, and when I say opportunity, I don't mean it in a good way now. They are constantly exposed to these emails, and they have not been able to build a system where they safeguard themselves away from it, and that's apart from greed. It's enough to be greedy, but if somebody is greedy and they don't have the opportunity to be exposed to crime, they don't have a chance to commit crime. So I would, in this case, I would focus more on the fact that it's opportunity, because people have access to the internet. People are constantly exposed to avenues that claim to provide wealth in different forms. And let's not also forget that cyber fraud, there's nothing new about cyber fraud, other than the fact that it's financial crimes through the tools of the internet, whether it's social media, whether it's via apps, whether it's via emails, and the likes. There's nothing different about cyber fraud that hasn't always been. I'm sorry about the noise. I'm actually out organizing a protest, joining others to do a protest in Nigeria, and I didn't want to postpone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
And of course, we stand with you. We protest with you virtually at the moment too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Rian, in general, what do you consider to be an alternative way to financial freedom for youths not to run out of options?
So to tie it back to the cyber fraud issue, I think the opportunity lies in the problem itself, because whether we like it or not, cyber fraud is going to grow because the internet is growing. We are entering into a phase of the fourth industrial revolution. So it's very important to recognize that while this problem persists, the opportunity is immense on the internet. Like social media. Social media is one of the biggest, greatest platforms in human history, and it's given so many young people or people from across age boundaries opportunities that you would not necessarily have before. Like we see the growth in e-commerce, on online marketing, even sharing your ideas online is for many people a source of great revenue. So I think that young people do need to hammer down on social media, on the internet, despite the many challenges and the risks posed by cyber fraud. That's just only one mitigating factor. Like in everyday life, if you're an informal trader on the street, there's a great risk of being involved in a victim of theft of your whatever you're selling on the street. So, like crime exists and persists in the physical world, in the online domain, um, online crime is generally extremely high, and it will persist as the industrial revolution increases rapidly. So the opportunities and the major alternative, I would say, for many people, especially youth in Africa, across the African continent, is online. We see the rise of a platform called TikTok, which has given many young people, even across India, despite them banning TikTok eventually, a source of major revenue and influence in society that they would not have necessarily had without that platform. So these social media platforms, whether you are a writer, a painter, a chef, or you write poetry, online online communication with your audience, adding value to your audience, bringing that value to your audience is extremely important for every young person or every person that wants to sell their business, go into e-commerce. And it's not just a quick fix, right? You need to really think about what you want to do, and you need to put in a lot of hard work behind it. So it's not going to make you rich overnight like a Forex scam claims to do. You have to put in the hard work behind e-commerce, or if you want to do online marketing, or if you want to be an influencer, because you don't need to necessarily be on TV anymore to be famous or to acquire a status in society. All you need to have is a smartphone, a camera, and start using your platform for whatever you need to create, and start adding value to other people's lives. And you know, the opportunities are endless, are boundless with the internet that we have today.
Thank you, Rian. Meanwhile, please to everyone else on the call on Zoom, you can remember to drop your questions on the chat box if you want it to be addressed to any of the speakers, or to have everyone else or any of the speakers to respond to it. Also remember that as you continue to join, please mute your microphones. Next, I'd like to ask Mayowa. You mentioned laws, and so most probably we would like to know what are the effective measures needed to be put in place to deal with this problem from its base. You mentioned laws, so most probably we would like to know what are the effective measures needed to be put in place to deal with this problem from its base.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So one of the ways to tackle this problem is to ensure that the laws that are put in place are effective and they are enforced. Cybercrime is just like every other crime. Basically, theft. The same way you have laws against theft and armed robbery, you have laws against cybercrime. You'd find that in many instances, individuals who perpetrate this sort of fraud, exist in syndicates. They belong to gangs or syndicates that have mastered the arts of these crimes, and also in many instances they have connections to law enforcement officers. They have connections to individuals in the police force, and this sort of connections with these law enforcement officers provides a shield, provides them an avenue to operate without the law taking its course. So first we need to ensure that the laws that are there are that are enforced, and those laws are, and we ensure that law enforcement officers are not compromised. That's one way to go about it, basically using the law to punish offenders, people who are involved in cybercrime. The other way is a general orientation. You'd find many individuals who engage in cyber fraud justify their their involvement in it by explaining, especially when cyber fraud is international. So if you'd find many young people who are engaged in cyber fraud, justify it by saying the West, especially when it's perpetrated against the West, or have abused us for so long, they've taken from us, then they will justify their involvement in cyber fraud based on colonialism and slavery, and use that to mask their engagement in or make themselves feel better. So, and you'd find that many people who engage in cyber fraud actually believe this. They believe that it's justifiable. What they're doing is justified based on just situations where Africans were enslaved, or many African countries were were brutalized and have our resources stolen under colonialism. So engaging these sort of individuals, engaging them, and ensuring that the conversations around cyber fraud continue in spaces like this, in classrooms, in online, in many other places. Just ensuring that these conversations continue, so that people who honestly believe or who are sympathetic to cyber criminals, based on the justifications that they peddle, have their opinions changed. I believe the opinions can be changed, especially if we continue to engage them with superior arguments and with reasons why you cannot compare theft, cyber fraud with the atrocities that that existed under the colonial era, or when we had slavery.
Thank you. JJ, I know you're in the protest, but we still need you here.
Yeah, I'm very much with you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Maya has mentioned holding laws, and probably the need to ensure that every law that has been passed to help and protect citizens against cyber fraud practiced. So while we hold the government responsible and accountable for ensuring that laws pertinent to this are put in place and victims are properly and thoroughly punished in accordance to the law, how best can we, as potential victims of cyber fraud, protect ourselves against it?
First of all, is to understand that if it is too good to be true, it is most likely not true. If someone is offering you a deal on the internet, especially someone you barely know, if that deal sounds too good to be true, it is most likely that deal is not true. It's very natural as a human being to be inclined, to be motivated, to want to invest or be part of a deal that comes with big returns. But the bigger the returns, really and truly, the higher the risk. So if I tell you that I have an agricultural investment that's going to get you 100% return, you should know that that's not going to happen, because agriculture does not return 100%. So people, first of all, have to check themselves. There's an iota of greed in the average human being. You have to be conscious of it. Can you hear me?
Yes,
have to be conscious of it. You have to pay attention to it. The other thing is to remove yourself from situations where you can be exposed to cyber fraud. And what do I mean by that? To not set yourself up in such a way that your platforms, your pages, your email is available, your data is available to just about anyone. And one of the best ways to do that is set up your email in such a way that suspicious emails go to spam. Suspicious emails go to spam. Is to also ensure that if you're having conversations with anyone on the internet about anything that is serious, be careful enough to know more about them beyond what they've said to you. You have a responsibility to try to find out more about them than they've said to you. It's not enough that they've told you they are this and they are that. You've got to go out of your way to find out more about them. Apart from Google, you can ask questions about people that they said, it's just the same way you're not going to be in the interpersonal space. Let's move away from the cyber space now and go to the interpersonal space. You're not going to do business with someone you don't know. You're not going to do business with someone you barely know. You're not going to do business with someone that you cannot pinpoint them to a specific address, whether a business address or a personal address. So when we take these precautions offline, why don't we remember to take these precautions online? It's too many times because of the way the repeated conversations we have amongst ourselves on the internet. It gives you a feeling of being close to people in a way that actually is not true, but that happens because closeness is a function of communication. When you constantly communicate with someone morning, noon, and night, you see what they're saying to other people. There is proximity and propinquity, and that makes you feel like you're family. You must understand that you're not family until you really and truly know them. I think that's what I would say about that. But ultimately, you also have to check your own greed. You have to check your greed. If you're not greedy, you're not going to be looking to invest in a business that promises 100% returns in 3 months. You're not going to be desperately looking to get $2 million from some money that has nothing to do with your investment. All of us must be content enough to be satisfied with what we get, even as we aspire to go higher, to do that incrementally, to seek opportunities in a way that is sensible, rather than think that, okay, just because you're special, God has given you some opportunity to make $5 million out of nowhere. It's not going to happen. Manna doesn't drop from heaven. And that's how we have to look at it. Remove yourself from the opportunities. Understand that your constant communication with other people online exposes you to trusting them. Check that trust. Find out about them. Investigate. Before you get involved in any business, ask yourself, is this too good to be true? If it's too good to be true, please hesitate. Do your research again. And ask yourself whether you want to go ahead with it or you don't, because the higher the risk, the higher the reward or the promised reward, the higher the risk.
Thank you very much. And of course, all you need to get and to remember is manna doesn't really come from heaven. We are not during those days where we can easily receive manna. So we need to go out there and work. We need to go out there and question everything else you read online, question everything else or anyone else that need to know more about your financial documents, your bank account, whatever it is. Now, I have a question here, and I'd like to direct this to Mayowa. Linda says, as our economies embrace the digital age, criminals are becoming smarter as they find loopholes in online platforms to extort money from consumers. The response by law enforcement has been to look for more stringent regulations that come with heavy taxation. What would be the best approach to deal with cybercrime in a reasonable way that does not infringe on the freedom of businesses and their customers?
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting question. There are multiple approaches to dealing with cybercrime depending on what the mode of operation of that crime. So as JJ mentioned, he was talking mostly about deals that you find online, conversations you have with people online. Those laws already exist for trying to defraud people that way. By receiving basically email phishing and receiving emails from people that you do not know, pretending to be your bank or pretending to be your a company that you do dealings with, the onus basically rests mostly on you to be as careful as possible. Hello? Yeah, the onus rests on you to be as careful as possible. And moving forward, as things improve, as these guys become a lot more, the individuals who get involved in cybercrime become a lot more sophisticated. Their emails, the typographical errors that you usually find in their emails seem to be disappearing. They are becoming a lot smarter at perfecting their crime. They've learned from mistakes and they're improving. So we should expect that over the next couple of years, the level of sophistication for email phishing and other types of online means of online fraud would improve significantly. That said, there might be regulations that make sense to be enacted. For For example, businesses should, but eventually businesses would even realize that they need to put certain modalities in place for they need to ensure that their database is protected and that customers' information are not are not easily compromised. Those systems need to be in place. If a business doesn't put that in place and customers realize that their data isn't protected by that certain business, they are likely to not want to give their data to. For example, if my bank doesn't have the systems in place to protect my information and I realize that my information and my money is not safe with that bank, I'm likely to move my funds and my savings elsewhere. So it's the responsibility to ensure that the personal information of customers are duly protected rests a lot on the shoulders of businesses that are collecting customer information. However, individuals who are also, and that's individuals like me and you, who are giving out information to banks. You go buy pizza, they ask you for your phone number and whatnot. Need to ensure that you are not just giving out your information indiscriminately, because these guys are getting smarter, and the smarter they get, the more knowledgeable about the loopholes in the system they would explore. And so it's eventually it's our responsibility, and it's the responsibility of businesses to keep personal information of customers as safe as possible.
Thank you very much for that, Mayowa. I'd like to go to Rian. Who do you think is to be blamed for the rise in cybercrime? Suppose we were to just decide today that we want to put the blame on somebody. Who are we supposed to blame?
I think it's important there to take a balanced approach, because you can't, on the one hand, really blame anyone other than the perpetrator themselves, but at the same personal responsibility and individual accountability. So the choices we make does have a major impact on our lives, on our financial life, and on our personal life. So if you need to go get rich quickly because you are in debt because of your own personal decisions, not because of the get rich quick scheme, but you're going to put yourself further in debt if you go along with it. At the same time, no one can be justified in taking advantage of a vulnerable individual's financial situation. So at the same time as the perpetrator is the guilty party, the clear guilty party, the individual taking decisions that is going to harm their financial stability. And when we understand that financial stability is long-term, it's not a short-term quick fix that you can put a bandage on it and it's going to be okay. There needs to be long-term sustainability. So the only way that you can get that long-term sustainability is to approach financial advisors at your bank and do it the right way, not on the internet, not over Gmail. It's not going to work. And I think what one of the other speakers said was really great, is that if it's too good to be true, then it's not true. And if you are going along with those situations, no matter how bad it is, and it is devastating for people who lose significant financial assets over the internet. I mean, $50,000, $10,000 can range from anything. As bad as that is, we need to start to take personal responsibility for the choices we make online, learn from mistakes that others have made, because we can no longer say that we don't have access to information about these sorts of things. We have Google, we have the internet that provides information at our fingertips. So in 2020, we have the most information at our fingertips at any time in history. So we need to take advantage of that, that information at our disposal. and take individual responsibility for the financial decisions we make, because your bank account isn't a playground. It's not something you play around with and give your number out, give your bank details out. Those are very dangerous things to just be handing out to anybody. And again, like someone else said earlier, that if you're not going to give out your money to someone you don't know on the streets, you shouldn't be doing it online as well. And I think that online participation and communication gives us this false sense of security in a way that we have control of the transaction happening. And that's just simply not the case. So I do think that it's a balance between taking individual responsibility and the individual's poor decisions, poor financial decisions. But at the same time, that these individuals taking advantage of vulnerable people need to be held accountable. And I would just like to add to another question is who is it that needs to, a previous question, who needs to actually clamp down? How do we clamp down on this? And I think that it's important to recognize that the more you allow the state, and I agree that businesses need to up their security, their security regarding online connectivity of their customers, but the business environment cannot be regulated by the state, by any state, because the moment you give the state any power to regulate any industry at any time, they incrementally over time start infringing on civil liberties of various individuals. Like a short example, in South Africa, we cannot use PayPal, we cannot use Cash App, we cannot use all these payment apps, which could enable local businesses and informal traders to make revenue from overseas transactions. So the informal sector and entrepreneurs are severely undermined in making any sort of revenue from international sales. And that could boost the economy significantly, but that all stems from government regulation that is so far reaching into the financial sector, and it stifles a lot of growth. But to your question specifically, I think there is a balance between the blame on the perpetrator and personal responsibility of the individual making the decision.
Thank you very much, Rian. JJ, Lynn is asking, and she's linking slightly her question to laws and policies that were advised as means of curbing cyber crimes. And she says, however, in most cases, governments use this as an opportunity to interfere with people's freedom of use of social media. So how do we also prevent this?
I think one of the ways of preventing this is to learn about best practices. I mean, the world over time, governments, for instance, used the war against terrorism, the war on terrorism, to really check a lot of personal freedom. So we have to go out of our way before the government makes the laws to actually be the ones leading on that front via advocacy. I love activism, but I think that activism has its limits. When you say you don't want something, when you go out there and make noise and say you don't want something, you don't want your voice suppressed, you don't want your rights suppressed, you also have to take an extra step forward by advocating for what you want. And that's where the real work is, because then you have to do the research, you have to check what are the global best practices on this issue, what are the countries that are able to manage the challenges of cyber fraud and at the same time maintain people's freedom and people's access to the internet without government being overbearing. That's where you do the real work of policy development. And when you do that, there's an alternative to what the government has. And then the people that want to fight that battle, the people that want to defend that position, have that alternative to defend. But what happens more often than not is that people are always screaming that they don't want this law, they don't want that law. But more often than not, they don't have the alternative law by the side for those that would potentially be on their side to say, actually, this is true. We can see what you have, government, but we can also see the alternative. And it's quite clear that you can actually manage cyber fraud. You can go after cyber criminals without suppressing freedom, without suppressing people's access to the internet, people's access to social media and the likes. So for me, really, the job is on us, the onus is on us to to do the extra work of advocacy, to do the extra work of learning about policy development, how policies are made, how laws are made, and to go the extra mile of attending these meetings. You should never be afraid of being represented or representing yourself at government meetings. A lot of activists shy away from that. They say that they are cut out just for making the noise, just for going out to protest. That's good, I have to say, really and truly, that's good. But after that, change has to happen. And change does not happen without policy. Change does not happen without laws. And that's where we must now come. That's what we must now commit to. That's where the real work is, because anyone can shout, anyone can know exactly what they don't want. But do you know what you want? Can you articulate what you want? Can you sit down at the meetings and voice what you want? That's where the next layer is, that's where the next level is, and that's what I think everybody has to learn. And I actually crave everyone's indulgence. I have to get into the protest now. I promise to be away for 45 minutes. If there's any other question, I can take it right away. Otherwise, I have to go. And I'm so sorry I'm not able to wait till the end.
It's okay, JJ. We appreciate it. I know I was informed by your assistant that you're busy, and we'd like to thank you. Even within the busy schedule, you got time and you are here. So we could release you to join them.
The pleasure
is mine. You to join them, and
thank you very much.
Yeah, hopefully we'll continue to engage you on this. Thank you. So
thank you very much.
My next question goes to
everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayowa, I don't know about you and everyone else, but I can't speak about cybercrime without thinking about, I know this is going to be funny, but without thinking about pyramid schemes. Things like Crowd One, AIM Global, I don't know. Do you really think there's a link between the two?
So I would say that there is a link between the two, and the link basically is fraud, right? Pyramid schemes have existed for so many years. They've been offline. They're now online. They're even hybrid pyramid schemes that have online components to it, but they are easily detectable, right? When you see a pyramid scheme, it's very easy to identify. They are not, they stand out, and it's like I said earlier, it boils down to personal responsibility. It's important for us, for anyone who is interested in investing or is interested in earning some money, to be careful, right? To be as careful as possible. You don't throw your funds around anyhow without doing your homework or doing your research. That said, there are other businesses that are legitimate that may look like they are pyramid schemes, and you would find legitimate multi-level marketing businesses that have existed for decades, and they use that model, but you find that they look very much like pyramid schemes. However, one way to identify the difference between legitimate business and an illegal or an illegitimate pyramid scheme would be what's driving it, what product is driving it, what sort of services are they backing, and eventually it's the responsibility of getting involved or not would be that of anyone who wants to involve himself or herself. They want to involve themselves in those sort of schemes. But while we see the rise of pyramid schemes across the continent, we've seen in Nigeria, in Kenya. There are also legitimate businesses that their models may look really similar to pyramid schemes.
Thank you. Rian, there's a question here that was linked, that was about, let me just get it. Yes, that is about, the increase in the number of smartphones and, generally the production or the manufacture of smartphones. And I'd like to, link it with something. I think it was today that I was reading about Kenyans. I think there were about three men and a lady who have been using dating sites to lure victims to houses. Then they torture them and rob them. You find they have PDQ machines, so you get to that place, and after you've been tortured, of course, you have to give out your ATM card and the PIN, and they withdraw money from it. So you see, this at the end of the day still becomes, this was aided via a mobile phone app. So are we really looking forward to, with the rise of smartphones and of course the advancement in technology, are we really looking forward to having this, in as much as, we are a very technological, at least we are a generation that knows a lot about technology. And of course, we have learned a lot. We hear and read about these kinds of conversations. So are we really looking forward to have a lot of, or more of these things coming up?
I think definitely it's going to be a feature of the next decade that we've entered. And because it's so accessible to now create apps, mobile apps, you have self-help things that you can go on the internet, look up, and you can create apps yourself. It's very accessible today to start creating these things and lure people into what is a trap for extorting or etc. But I think just a practical tip in terms of mitigating these things is that one of the things you can do is look up a company. You can go to the bank or the registering bodies, whichever they are in your countries, and you can request a list of companies that are supposedly registered, who need to be financially compliant. If they are on that list, you can also get an additional list to see how many complaints each company has received regarding financial reporting or any sort of complaints in that regard. So there is a little bit of a way that you can mitigate some circumstances. Now, I would caution against any sort of forex, or you put in 50 Rand and you're going to get, or $50 and you're going to get $1,000 out of it. That's not going to bear any fruit. It's not real. No such thing exists, not even in the investment world. You can't put in $50 and just magically get off of the US indices just $1,000. You need to be highly skilled to do that. So that's number one, for just a practical skill. Don't go for things that are not registered whatsoever with any registering body. They need to be official. They need to have some sort of legitimacy, some sort of brokerage legitimacy. And that will just help everybody mitigate just that little bit of factors that is hindering them or entrapping them in a situation that they don't necessarily want to be in. But I do think, extending your question then, I do think that it's important to recognize that this is the environment that we're going to live in for our lifetime, essentially. We are just at the beginning of the technological revolution. So everything that we know and have is going to go online. And one just anecdotal example is that a few days ago, I was way too busy to go to the shops. And I discovered that one of the big retail shopping grocery stores in South Africa has a mobile app that you can just order your food and your groceries get delivered. And I did that. And it just shows you at what pace we are moving. And I mean, I had to install my card details on it. And at first I was a little bit apprehensive, because what if I pay, it goes off on my account and nothing actually materializes? So it was a worrying thing to use something like that for the first time. However, we do recognize that we are moving at a very fast pace in our civilization, and these things are going to happen. But there are factors where you can go look up companies. They need to be registered with a financial reporting body or with some authority in your country. There are always registering boards. if you don't know any, contact your bank and ask for contact details. And that's just one practical step that everybody can apply when dealing with money matters online, because it's not as simple as getting a return of 1,000 or 100% on on an investment. It's not going to happen. It's not. It hasn't ever happened, and it will never happen.
Thank you very much, Rian. Thank you very much, Mayowa and JJ in absentia. We have come to an end, and I'd like to thank also everyone else that has joined us, that has been listening, even for your questions and for your patience. Don't forget that this was the first session of the last day of LibertyCon 2020. We have the next session that is going to begin at about 6:15 my time, that is EAT. And of course, as we finish this, we are going to have a 15 minutes break in the next 5 minutes. So I'd like to ask Mayowa and Rian, of course, starting with Rian. I know you've just spoken a minute ago, but then what are your last words to everyone that is listening? This call, Zoom, and via YouTube, and of course for everyone else that might in the future stumble upon the footage that we are going to share on YouTube.
I think the first aspect dealing with fraud online or in any situation is do your due diligence. You need to go do your research about anybody saying that they can make a return on your investment. Do it with registered bodies, and take time to acquire skills and knowledge that would help you financially, instead of trying to get a get quick rich scheme to make you some money that you owe to someone, or you're in debt somewhere else. And to take special precaution against advocating for government intervention in these regards, because civil liberties is under threat in Africa, in regions in Africa, and it gives overwhelming powers to dictators or even democratic states to push arbitrary rules that will encroach on your individual liberties and your individual freedoms. So we must do away with this notion that the government needs to save us from everything. We need to take personal responsibility. We need to do our due diligence, and we need to trust official bodies that can legitimately deal with money matters.
Thank you very much. Mayowa, over to you. You are parting shot.
All right. I would say that my parting words would be that we continue to speak out against online fraud. I know that so many young people, not only young people, but so many people are getting involved, in cybercrime. They might be our friends, they might be family, and there's a tendency to overlook this because they are kith and kin. It's important to speak up. It's important to continue to have conversations that that expose the evils of internet fraud. It's also important to continue to pressure our governments to fish out, collaborating police officers and government officials who are part and parcel of these crime syndicates. Those are very important, and I hope that we continue to have these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayowa, Rian, and of course, JJ in absentia. This has been a wonderful session. Thank you very much for everyone that has joined us. In the next few seconds, we are going to take a 15 minutes break. And when we come back, we are going to be listening to a session of panel that is going to be hosted by one of us, that is going to be on insistent rape cases and teen pregnancies amid COVID. So please just go and have some drink, some water for the next 15 minutes, and please do remember to join us after that. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. You're welcome to our second session. We will be discussing incessant rapes and teenage pregnancies amid COVID-19. Thank you so much for staying on the call. My name is Abisolo Laya, and I'm the regional coordinator at Students for Liberty, and I'm also the chapter leader for Ladies of Liberty Alliance in Lagos State. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Today on the panel session, I have three speakers: Banke Olagbegi Oloba, I have Zaina Kumbo, and then I also have Uyango Utieno. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Please say hi to our audience. Hello, Banker. Can you hear me?
Hi all. My name is Mrs. Banker Olagidiyoloba. It's nice to be here. I'm a Nigerian lawyer and a law lecturer. Thank you.
Hi, Zaina.
Hi everyone, this is Zaina Kombo and I work at Aki Africa. I'm in Kenya.
Welcome, Zaina. It's so good to have you.
Thank you.
Hello.
My pleasure.
Hi, Hoyango. How you doing? Thank you for joining. Please say hi. Your audio is very bad. Your audio is pretty bad. But thank you. I hope we fix that. Let me move straight right into
I think he should undo the earphone. He should undo the earphone. It's probably the earphone from a technical point of view. Thank you.
Oyango, can you redo your audio, please?
Is that any better?
Definitely.
Exactly.
Yes, we can.
Very better.
Very much better. Very much better. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll dive right into it. Barrister Banker is a Nigerian lawyer, a researcher, a lecturer, mediator, and arbitrator. She is the immediate past treasurer, Nigerian Bar Association. She's also the American Bar Association section of International Law Liaison to the Nigerian Bar. She's a diversity and inclusion officer, among other notable qualifications that she has. She has published peer-reviewed articles in several local and international journals. Thank you so much for joining on once again. So I'll just go right into it. I'll start with the first question. I mean, the number of rape cases, some leading to death during the COVID-19 and teenage pregnancies, got alarmingly, high during the COVID pandemic. Please tell us, what do you consider to be the root causes of rape and teenage pregnancy?
Thank you very much. Let me start by giving a brief overview of what rape is all about. Rape is a universal occurrence. It is not restricted to any particular country, region, race, caste, or class. It happens amongst the poor, the rural, illiterate, as much as the rich, those in the urban area, and in fact, the so-called elites. Rapes are committed by religious leaders, teachers, guardians, fathers, brothers, relatives, neighbors, and in fact, sometimes strangers. Rape is a stigmatized crime wherein people cast aspersions on the victim instead of the accused. This emboldens menfolk, not all men, but those who indulge in the crime. It emboldens them, and they bank heavily on a woman's silence to preserve. Can you hear me, please? Am I audible?
Yes, you are very audible. I can hear you. Please go on.
Oh, thank you very much. They abuse a woman's silence in the bid to preserve her honor. It's also very easy to put the blame on women for bringing out the beast in men. Can you imagine that? For instance, a group of men, from past information gathered from offenders, they try to, they justify the fact that a woman should be, abused, raped, punished for arousing them. They have the ill perception that if there were no women, who would men rape? Do you actually agree with that?
No.
So rapists have all sorts of excuses and justifications for their acts. And most of these excuses are absolutely unfounded. Now, one of the very popular reasons, that it keeps on recurring time and time again is where they say that, they were spurred to rape because of a woman's dressing, the way a woman, the victim was dressed. Now, there's this question. Can we now say that a woman's mode of dressing is an invitation to all and sundry to rape her? Where do we place, if we're looking at it from the perspective, then where do we place the fact that quite a number of rape victims are minors, like minor, young children, babies? It's even more shocking that in nearly 95% of cases reported, rapes has been committed by none other than relatives and family members or people known to the victims. Now, so can we now say that dress really provoke? Are women clad in saris not raped? Are Reverend sisters not raped? Are women, even, dead women? We have seen instances where, cops were abused. And we have also seen instances where men, sexually abuse animals. So should we now clothe them, to make them justify the murder reason? Now, how do you explain rape in minors? Infants, old-aged women, women suffering from unsoundness of mind, women in coma, or those hospitalized with several ailments. Now, another reason that has been given is the desire to control. Rape is a power crime, according to a group of men. So men's popularity amongst women causes them to mistake themselves as semi-gods whom women are dying to please in bed. This group of men, they like to boast about their sexual encounters, equating them aggressive. It feels superior and in control, And we have seen instances where men who fall under this category, husbands, raping their wives and seek to justify same as a means of punishing her, or, a means of putting her in her place or simply to vent out their frustrations. We have seen instances where suitors, jilted lovers, and all those who believe in the women to be theirs cannot take a no for an answer and force sex to punish or avenge. People rape their girlfriends, living partners, friends, acquaintances. All these are not right. Then there's this other point, this other reason, we have rape myths, like the set of people who fall within this category, they believe that no means yes. A lady never says yes. Women like to be taken by force. Women who drink are an easy lay. All these are misplaced perceptions. They believe that outgoing women like to experiment in all areas, including sex, etc., etc. And by perpetuating such myths or doing rights, most of the time the accused are not even aware that what they have done, amounts or amounted to rape. They admit, of course, to have forced sex, but refuse to accept it as an act of rape. Same with this issue of date rapes, boyfriends who don't know when to stop because they fail to comprehend the concept of consent. Then lack of safety measures also play a part. For instance, in villages where women, venture out at night as there are no toilet facilities at home, this put them at risk. Girls that are not properly taken care of by their mothers, when the girl child or a teenager is asked to hawk, and even elderly women, when they are asked to hawk, the society provides no safety measure to protect women. So women are expected to be conscious of all these ills and know where and when to walk and how to protect themselves. Now we have the problem of inadequate sexual education. As adolescent boys have, they have this urge, they want to explore, and a skewed sex ratio, lack of accessibility, and negligible interaction with people of the opposite sex play havoc on impressionable minds fed with easy access to porn. You know, when you have easy access to porn on internet, on the social media and all, you look for ways to practicalize what you have seen. You know, also the profanity of using all these musics that our youth listen to, all those musics, the vulgar languages in those lyrics, you know, they all need to be curbed. And there are times when the women is projected as no more than an object of desire. This causes women to be viewed as commodities meant to be consumed and ravished, which is absolutely wrong. Sexually obsessed rapists don't consider women as human beings, but as an object that can be violated with impunity. Now, there are some other reasons: obsession for sex, lack of self-control, psychological factors, lax rape laws in Nigeria and indeed all over the world.
Totally agree.
Silence, alcohol, drugs, insecurity, personality disorder, deviant sexual preferences, to mention but a few. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much for that submission. Thank you so much, Banky, for that submission. Zaina Kombo, you're an advocate of the High Court of Kenya with a passion for human rights and the role of law in development. I mean, you have over 6 years experience in working with communities, and you hold a Bachelor of Laws degree and Master of Law in Governance and Democracy. You've been working closely with local communities, Zaina. Please, welcome again. Can you please tell us more about, the rape cases and early pregnancies, being the fact that they are not new and the fight against this has been going on? How do you think, you can compare the experiences and the cases before COVID-19 and during COVID-19? Zaina.
Thank you, Abby, for having me. First, let me say that the situation right now is really dire. We are in dire need of a lot of awareness and support, including mental health support. The rape cases before COVID-19, of course, were there, they were ongoing. And of course, we already had challenges of getting evidence, because immediately a woman or immediately a child is defiled, and then the society, quickly rushes to tell them to take a bath because they're going to report to the police station, not knowing that they're actually destroying the evidence, the crucial evidence that is required for the case to be prosecuted successfully. So now you can imagine we have a lockdown. You can imagine we have, people being restrained from going outside. We have churches and mosques and all other places of worship being closed down. And as counsel already indicated, most of the perpetrators are relatives, people known to the children, people known to these women. So we have perpetrators and victims placed together with nowhere to run to. The cases have escalated so much so that the Ministry of Health in our country, Kenya, had to announce that, the increase in violence is alarming. Just between mid-March and June, there was already 70% increase in violence. And right now, we, the civil society and everyone else is involved in trying to find ways of, dealing with sexual and gender-based violence cases. But the thing is, the cases, there's an upsurge, and this is contributed by a number of factors. The fact that now perpetrators and victims are together. If you look at, rape cases, we have men who are idle because, they lost their livelihoods, and women with the lack of jobs. People are together in the house, sometimes 24 hours, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do. So the mental health issues are also culminating into violence, and it's really sad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zaina. Thank you so much. That's absolutely true. We've really seen a lot of upsurge of mental health issues across Africa and across the world as a result of the pandemic. Let me go straight to Onyango Tieno. Onyango, as a poet, writer, a mental health advocate, a gender activist and co-founder of Fatuma's Voice Foundation, which has, been running series of events, based on community-based social change, which encourage creative expression and sparking conversation about social issues. Please tell us, are the measures put in place to combat the problem before COVID not enough, or was it that they were not effectively implemented? What do you think, Otieno?
The measures are definitely exceedingly inadequate, because if I look at my country, the Ministry of Health of Kenya reported that between mid-March and June, when we were at the height of COVID, there were 5,000 rape cases reported. And of the 70% of the survivors or victims are girls of 18 years of age going down, and that 5% of that number are male, and that 95% of the perpetrators are male as well. And they also reported that the 5,000 is a number that is 7%, and a 7% increase in the numbers of the same time last year. So that means between mid-March and June 2019. And it definitely means the cases are still there, still largely underreported. And I think the issue about sexual abuse and rape is more attitudinal than about implementation of laws. It is the attitude, social attitudes, cultural attitudes, religious attitudes, political attitudes that people have against mostly girls and women in regards to the entitlement they feel they have over their bodies, and that is it mostly in regards to men. So I think the government needs, and all the government and all stakeholders need to develop more grassroots programs that are going to help people change their attitudes around sexual violence, around the meaning of sex, around consent, and things like those.
Thank you so much, Otieno, for that. Thank you so much. If you're just joining and you have any questions, please leave them in the chat box while we continue. We'll take them as we go along. Barrister Bankhead, please let me come back to you. Considering the previous response, what measures should be taken and effectively implemented to impede all these vices?
Thank you very much for that question. So many measures that I have, to share. For instance, there's the need for aggressive education, awareness, aggressive this time around, gender sensitization and legal awareness creation, especially on the part of parents, schools, religious bodies, NGOs, and indeed the government. We also need better policing system, not only in Nigeria, but in Africa at large. Then we need CCTV mapping, especially of desolate areas. We need cognitive restructuring, to remove the myth, clogging the minds of quite a number of people. The wrong perception that we are in the men's world, that what's women meant for, or why are you taking this issue that far? Is it not just rape? Just, quote and unquote, without minding the fact that it could happen to their daughters, it could happen to their sisters, it could even happen to their friends, it could even happen to them, whether you're a male or a female. Need for behavioral and emotional intelligence, which is very different from academic intelligence. I'm stressing that because whether you're well-read or not, we have seen even professors, raping students, female students. So It really doesn't matter whether you are educated or not. Behavioral and emotional intelligence is key, and we need to all, pay special attention to that. We need attitudinal change. Need to question the accused, not the victim. Need to question the accused and not the victim. The time of rape or the dress she wore.
That's right.
Society needs to stigmatize the perpetrator instead of the victim. Sensible sensitivity is essential to counter the crime, which is rightly classified as the worst crime against womanhood, or even the girl child, or even a person. It's worse because it affects the victims psychologically, and some throughout the days of their lives would find it difficult to manage that situation.
Thank you.
Active implementation and enforcement of the laws. End of the silence campaign. There's a need for rigorous campaign to end the silence. Then there's need, for us to have a very firm, more stringent penalty. For instance, surgical castration of offenders, then publicizing the list and pictures of offenders. All this will go a long way in deterring people, discouraging anyone, whomsoever, from, indulging or even considering the offense.
That's right.
If time would permit me.
We actually have to move on. I'll still get back to you for that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much.
Yes,
thank you.
Zaina, what do you think should be done to the victims, since their experiences cannot be undone? I mean, these things are, pretty much permanent. Just like Barrister Banke has said, what happens to a victim is that after the experience, there's a lot of psychological issues, that they have to battle with, some throughout for the rest of their life. Zainab, what other contribution do you think, should be done to victims since their experiences cannot be undone?
As a society, we need to destigmatize rape, and especially the victims or survivors, if I may put it in a positive way. Survivors need to be supported. Psychosocial support, they need to be given continuous counseling, because healing, I believe, is a process. They need to be supported economically. They need to be supported to even live where the atrocity took place, because this then keeps on reminding them that the perpetrator could be around, and it instills a lot of fear. The government, or rather African governments, need to work towards having safe houses, state-owned, state-run safe houses where such victims can go and recover and have support networks, and so that they see, as much as this has happened and this cannot be undone, they have people to support them. It is very unfortunate that as Africans, we have a tendency of stigmatizing, as the barrister has just said, stigmatizing the victim rather than the perpetrator. We need to find ways, whether it's our cultural ways of punishing the perpetrators by naming and shaming, and supporting the victims or the survivors to ensure the process of healing starts immediately. And we also need to inform them of how to now properly take care of themselves, train them on security, whether they have to go to taekwondo or something, because then the trauma that these people carry all through their lives then makes them even more vulnerable in terms of security. And so they need support. Number 2, support. Number 3, support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zaina, for that. Thank you so much. Support is very important when dealing with victims of rape. Barrister Banke, please, very briefly, are there laws that protect victims of rape that people should know about when seeking for justice? Please let us know, as a really experienced lawyer, please let us know if there are laws that protect victims that we should all know about.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the question. And while answering this question, I'll be speaking from the Nigerian perspective, being a Nigerian lawyer. And before I comment that, I know for a fact that every African country has great criminal, provisions against the offense of rape, defining rape, and defining the punishments that should be met out against an offender. Now, in Nigeria, for instance, we have the Penal Code, which is applicable in all the northern states of Nigeria. We have the Criminal Code applicable in all the southern states. We have the Criminal Law of Lagos State applicable only in Lagos State. We have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015, applicable only in the FCT Abuja, but also domesticated in some countries. And we have various campaigns ongoing right now to ensure that the act is domesticated in all 6 states of Nigeria, because it's a very, very great enactment, which, if well implemented, would go a long way in curbing the menace. Then we have the Child Rights Act, applicable in the states that have domesticated it already. Now, in all the laws, the maximum penalty for the offense of rape is life imprisonment. Life imprisonment, but subject to the discretion of the court. Now, but then I would love to dwell on the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015. Section 1 of the VAP Act defines rape as when a person intentionally penetrates the vagina, anus, or mouth. Please note the key words, menstrual has to be there. That is the criminal intention, penetrates the vagina, not only that, the anus, the mouth of another person with any other parts of his body or her body or anything else. I'll repeat that, or anything else without consent or with incorrectly obtained consent. That is, the consent could be, it could be without consent or consent incorrectly obtained, where such consent was obtained by false threat, intimidation, false and fraudulent representation as the nature of the act, use of substances capable of taking away the will of the person, like all these hard drugs that the youths use, they put in drinks these days, and or impersonating a married woman's husband in order to have sex with her. Now, if you pay close attention to this section 1, you will see, or you will agree with me, that, well, the definition of rape is very, very, well captured in the act, unlike all other provisions that I've mentioned, unlike the Criminal Code, the Penal Code, the Criminal Laws of Lagos, or the definition in the Child Rights Act. This act is saying that any person can be raped, be you a man or a woman. And as it used to be as the case is in all other legislations that I've mentioned, this particular provision is saying that it might not be through the penis, that it could be with any other part of your body or anything whatsoever, once there's evidence of penetration without the person's consent or with incorrectly obtained consent, then an offense of rape would have been committed. Because in the past, it was difficult to prove that a man was raped or a boy child was raped, or that a person has been raped through any other part of the body or with something else. But this provision is very comprehensive. And so it will be difficult for any accused person to escape the wrath of the law when you use this provision. And that explains the reason why very rigorous campaign is ongoing right now to ensure that all states, all 36 states in Nigeria, domesticate the law so that it will become applicable and it will become a veritable tool against the menace.
Thank you so much. I think we just lost your audio, but let me quickly move to Onyango. Please, can you tell us what are the ways victims of rape can deal with the psychological trauma? I mean, you've been doing a lot of work, talking about mental health and how victims, deal with psychological issues after the incidents. Please, educate us on the ways rape victims can deal with the psychological trauma.
I think it's a collective intersectional teamwork kind of thing, because when we leave this work only to the survivors, then it becomes very difficult if they do not have an enabling environment for them to do this. So in the beginning, like I think my colleagues have said, we have to create an awareness, a rigorous awareness about and against rape and sexual assault in our communities, and the fact that these vices are happening, and that we need also to collaborate with the justice system so that we stop stigmatizing victims or survivors and call out perpetrators, just so that these cases can even reduce. But for most survivors, it is paramount that they also start speaking out against what happens to them. And what you find is that most people live way much more in fear because of the power dynamics. Most times when a person rapes you, they are above you in terms of power, in terms of resources, in terms of access, in terms of even ability to talk. And so it becomes very difficult for most parts. So there is no, I wouldn't say there is one way someone can deal psychologically with having to go through a rape case or a rape ordeal. But speaking up is one of the most powerful things that I have seen work around the nature of my work. And the second thing is the collaboration between justice systems and like the lawyer has said from Nigeria, like if we can create safe houses where survivors can run to and feel secure and even recuperate from their ordeals as well. And even just keep pushing the government to create better systems that are going to help people understand that sexual and reproductive health and rights are such an important component of our livelihoods.
Thank you so much, Oyango, for that submission. Zaina, let's quickly talk about the options for teenagers. I mean, there are also stories of a lot of teenagers, that were raped and they didn't really know what to afterwards. Many of them got pregnant, so wish to keep the baby in Africa. Is there any sort of idea? Please let us know.
Before
Zaina, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Okay, so before I respond on the options, I'd just like to give some statistics that 97% of abortions received by African women are unsafe. This already gives you an indication of the options that teenagers have when they get pregnant and they do not want to keep the baby. So not all African countries have restricted or rather have liberalized abortions, but you'll be lucky as a teen if you are in Cape Verde, you're in South Africa, you're in Tunisia, because these are the three countries that have liberalized abortions. For any reason, you can actually get safe abortion in these countries upon request. Ethiopia is the latest, which liberalized abortions in 2004. For teenagers in Zambia, they also have very liberal abortion laws, but the unfortunate bit is that there are not so many physicians in that country, and so unfortunately maternal deaths are also very high, actually one of the highest in the world. And then there are about 14 countries that if you belong in those countries, then you don't really have an option, because they do not permit abortion for any reason. These countries are Angola, Central African Republic, Congo-Brazzaville, DRC, Egypt, Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Lesotho, Madagascar, Mauritania, Mauritius, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, and Somalia. So if you are a teen in those 14 countries, unfortunately, you do not have an option. And I'll go back to my first statement when I said 97% of the abortions received by women in Africa are unsafe. This gives you an indication. Okay, for Kenya, there is an exception on medical grounds. So you can terminate your pregnancy on medical grounds. This has been confused sometimes. Other people interpret it as, abortion being legal in Kenya. It's really a hot debate that keeps on coming every time because there are those who are very conservative and those who feel we should actually go liberal, just like South Africa, Tunisia, and Cape Verde. So it's hard to actually say what options teenagers have in Africa because as at now, we are still struggling with the safe abortions. Of course, I think this is informed mainly because of our African cultures and the fact that other countries have completely refused to liberalize abortion laws. Unfortunately, this is causing a lot of maternal deaths. And as indicated, I mean, in South Africa, when they legalized abortion in 1997, the abortion-related deaths reduced by about 90%. So I think as Africans, we need to rethink and we need to support our teens and any other person who has, gotten pregnant either through a rape ordeal or has been defiled. Because you see, unfortunately, we say that abortion is illegal. But on the other hand, we are not even supporting this person to go through whatever they're going through. So there's no social support, there's no financial support. Where some countries, as you may have heard, have also refused for girls to go back to school when they're still pregnant. So the options are very limited in Africa, but we should continue fighting. We should continue asking ourselves, what options then? If you say it's not legal to have an abortion, then what other option, what other alternative are you giving these children or women so that at least even as they go through this ordeal, they'll have something positive coming out of this? Thank you.
Very much, Zainab. Thank you very much. Oyango, please, we have a couple of questions in the chat box already. If you still have more questions, please drop them in the chat box. Oyango, can you answer this question? It says, what is the limitation of rape? What is the statute of limitation of rape? Oyango?
I'm not sure I understand that question. Could you please repeat it?
So the person is asking, what is the limitation of rape? Is there a limitation of rape? I don't know if that makes any sense.
Limitation of rape, does that mean they're trying to ask what are the spectrums of what rape means, or?
Yeah, you can discuss what are the spectrums, yes.
I think from simple understanding, the moment you try to have sex with somebody who is not willing to have sex with you, that definitely is rape. Does not matter what they are, who they are, does not matter their gender, their sex, doesn't matter their age. First of all, we already know if it is somebody who is below the 18 years of age, then already that is rape. And if they are above the 18 years of age and they are not willing to participate with you in the sexual act and you're doing it without consent, then that is rape, regardless of the situation. Also, you could be coercing them or manipulating them into having sexual intercourse with you. That is also another form of rape.
Yes, thank you. I think that pretty much answers the question. Zaina, there's another question here that I would like you to take, please. It says, what are some of the things that women, ladies, or young girls need to know regarding, rape in the case where there's little to be done to help them?
So number one, women and girls need to understand that the dresses or whatever it is that someone is wearing during the time that this offense is happening should be kept, should not be washed, because it is evidence. Well, unfortunately, most of the time, this is not the case, but these dresses or whatever someone is wearing at the time when the offense has taken place, as it is, just don't wash it with all the stains and everything, because that is the easiest way of getting the DNA to match the DNA of the perpetrator, and to make it easy for the case to be prosecuted effectively. Number two is that, of course, you need to go and report. Well, in Kenya, we have gender desks at our police stations. At least, let me put it, we are supposed to have gender desks in every police station, so that women and children or whoever has been sexually violated or has undergone through any kind of gender-based violence then can report. And then we also need to understand that this particular person, I mean, the victim or the survivor, is going through a lot of trauma. So they need time, to process this whole thing. They need time and space before they can decide whether they are dropping this case or not. So most people are usually very scared to even testify in court, and they decide to withdraw, or they decide that they don't want to pursue the matter. Unfortunately, for the case of Kenya, most parents have also been, very unsupportive of the process. Why? Because they get compromised by either the family of the perpetrators, they get some money, and they want to drop the case. It is very frustrating when you're busy trying to follow up the case, you're busy trying to support and follow through so that the victim can get justice, but then the parents have been compromised on the side, and our cultures are also not supporting us, because I don't want to mention the community, but there's a community where they settle defilement and rape cases through the elders. Wow. So it is the elders who decide how this case will go. This is beyond the courts. According to them, they are trying to have alternative dispute resolution mechanism, but they don't realize that a rape case or a defilement case is a matter, it's usually republic versus the perpetrator. So this is not just about them or just about the victim. It's something that needs to be addressed to ensure that we curb such kind of cases. So I'd like to, this should apply across Africa, that when someone is defiled or raped, the number one thing to do is to help that person report these incidents, get their numbers. In Kenya, we call it an OB number, and then get the medical report done, and the clothes be kept safely so that this matter can be prosecuted effectively. Without that, without the evidence, to prove beyond doubt that it is that perpetrator who committed this offense, then this is how we get a lot of perpetrators going unpunished, and the cycle keeps on going on and on.
Thank you so much for that contribution. Thank you so much. Barrister Banker, quickly, in 2 minutes, less than 2 minutes, if possible. Someone mentioned that our deviation from dressing in a traditional attire could be one of the reasons why the level of and the number of rape cases spiraled during the COVID-19. You've mentioned why dresses is more important when you have to consider why people are raped. Can you just shed a little bit more light on this for this person?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Okay, so someone is saying that could it be our dress code that is responsible, being the fact that we no longer wear a traditional attire? So the person is asking, do you have any take on this? Is it because we now wear Western form of clothing? Is that why there are more rape cases?
Well, thank you very much for that question. For me, dressing has nothing to do with it. You see, when at the law school, most of the things we were taught were based on the reasonable man's test. And that is the test that the judge would have in mind when faced with a criminal trial. Will a reasonable man do that? If the answer is no, and the law clearly says that it is wrong, then it is a crime. Where then lies the fundamental right, the liberty, the freedom right of women and the girl children? If someone is saying that he raped because of the way the person was dressed. Now, please don't get me wrong. I always tell those close to me that it is the way you're dressed that you will be addressed, no matter what, dress decently. That being said, it is not a good ground to say that Mr. A raped Miss B or Mrs. B because of the way and manner in which she was dressed. That's wrong.
Yeah, that's very correct.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you a follow-up question quickly, Barrister Banke, from somebody that asked, what is Nigeria? I mean, at this stage, what other law? Can you explain how raping men is detailed in your laws?
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the law did not specifically mention male rape, but the law says violence against persons, and a man is a person. When a crime is committed, the accused will be charged in accordance with the provision of the law. So all you need to do is to bring that crime, that offense under the law and say that this person is a person. And this law says that no man must be raped, and this person has been raped. And then you prove the ingredients of rape, and then you link the offender to the crime. Although that is yet to be challenged in court up to today because of this problem of silence. Not only, rape generally, victims of rape generally, would want to keep quiet. So we have, to the best of my knowledge, no case has been so challenged in court yet. But I think people should, whether you're a woman or a girl child, speak out. Let's end the silence.
Thank you so much.
But the law is there. Very hopeful. Thank you very much.
Oyango, being someone that has always been in the forefront of psychological and mental health examination, I would like to ask, what do you think? Do you think rape is a mental situation? Does it mean that people that are rapists, do they have mental problems?
It's an easy and hard question, because somebody forcefully getting sex from someone else definitely does not think upright. Is not a healthy human being, to put it that way. They're not a healthy human being. Any kind of violence comes from lack of health, and so rape is just among them. When you take things forcefully in a violent manner, in a way that will hurt somebody else, then it means you're not healthy. By this instance, not being healthy may not necessarily mean mentally ill, but it just necessarily mean your beliefs could be something that is detrimental to general well-being of a society or your environment or even yourself. So I would say someone may not be mentally ill by being a perpetrator, but their beliefs could be unhealthy, or they could be unhealthy just by how they perceive the world, or agenda in that instance. That's what I'd say about that.
Okay. As a follow-up question, may I go quickly? Do you think someone also asked if if rape can happen in marriages? What do you think about that? Just in
marital rape is very real. It's very, very real, and in the reality is it happens more to women than it does to men. And again, because of the complexity of our cultures and the idea that when a man marries a woman, he owns her, then so many women feel trapped in this situation, and they find it very difficult to even talk to even fellow married women about the situation they are going through in their marriages. And these are like very many examples that are happening in our communities, especially when you move away from urban centers. So much marital rape is happening because the man believes he owns the woman, and then women are usually told that just before they get married, that when he wants it, you should give it to him. So it becomes very difficult because when she doesn't feel like having sex, she feels like she has to pay the conjugal, what we call conjugal rights to the man, and it's very difficult, and I think mostly very abusive, especially to women.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Onyango. Zaina, I would really like to ask, how do you encourage rape victims to come out and open up to, relevant authorities? Because, most victims, they keep to themselves. They don't want to talk about what they've gone through. How do you encourage somebody that has been raped to, come out to speak out to the relevant authorities? Please quickly in less than 2 minutes, please.
First, let me clarify that when I said we should keep the clothes, I didn't mean that the victim should stay with the clothes until the case is prosecuted till the end. I only meant that this person should not take a bath, should not remove the clothes, or if they need to remove the clothes, they need to go with them for the medical checkup so that, the samples are taken, the clothes are kept well, and then she can take a bath after reporting and going to the hospital for the medical report so that this can be used, as evidence in court. Number two, as you said, and as I indicated earlier, that the society needs to support the survivors or victims of rape. When that happens, someone gets confused. They don't know what to do. It is upon us as a community to help these people, take them to hospital, take them to report this matter, give them counseling, and slowly by slowly, as they go through the process of healing, they're able to speak up and, share their experience. Of course, they will need people who they trust. It's not, someone cannot just start opening up to a stranger. So you have to, as neighbors, as a community, you have to find the people that this person is close to, whether it is the mom or the sister or the aunt or their favorite, their best friend. Keep them close with these people so that slowly by slowly they start giving, their stories and how it went. Of course, they will be crying and of course they will react differently. But when you have people that you trust close to you, giving you support, not stigmatizing the whole situation and telling you to shut up and putting you down, then slowly by slowly, these people will have, they will share their story. Because remember, they are their own key witnesses, even if you go to court. These people have to give their story and, say what happened. Unfortunately, that is how our laws are shaped. And so if this person is not part of that case, then it weakens the whole prosecution. Thank you.
So much, Zaina. Thank you so much, Zaina. Barrister Banker, in less than 1 minute, what do you think about, what's your view about fathers raping their daughters? I've got 2 people who asked the same question. What's your view, please?
Well, I think it is a man with an unsound mind that will rape his child.
Yeah.
It is a very sad thing, and unfortunately it happens out there and relatives are not speaking out. It's very wrong, and the laws are absolutely against such.
Yeah.
So please, no matter what, let's all speak out. When it happens, God forbid, let us encourage the victims, to allow the cause of justice to reign. Otherwise, such a man would repeat it again and even do it to some other persons.
Yes. Yes.
To end the crime, we all need, all hands must be on deck. Thank you.
All hands must be on deck. Thank you very much. Very quickly, I would like to encourage everyone to please turn on their cameras. Please turn on your cameras. We'd like to take a group photo of everyone on the call. Kindly turn on your camera so that we can take a group photograph of everyone on the call. Please turn on your camera. Okay, while we are waiting for people to turn on their cameras, any last word from you, Oyango? What would you like to say? Your take home for people to take this discussion.
I would love to reach out to the young men on this call and everybody who's listening to this, that it's time when we viewed masculinity differently, especially as young men, because a lot of us do not have healthy examples of men to look up to so that we can be men ourselves. And so it's time we even questioned our beliefs, questioned our spirituality, questioned our politics, questioned who we were told we were supposed to be, just so that we can even attempt to make a different society for this continent.
Much, Oyango. It's been so amazing to have you on this call. Please, kindly, we are enjoying you to please turn on your camera so that we can take a good photo of everyone on the call. Zaina, please, what's on this conversation that we've been having? Would you like people to take home after all of this?
Mine is just to encourage people to speak out, because without speaking out on this, regardless of the fact that rape and defilement and anything gender-based violence has been stigmatized, we need to speak out and make sure we get justice and not frustrate the justice process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zaina. It's been such a huge honor to have you on this call. Kindly turn on your camera. If you can, kindly turn on your camera so that you can take good photos of everyone on the call. Barrister Banke, it's been so amazing to have you. What's your final take on our conversation? What would you like to do?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, my final words, please, let's all end the silence. Let there be a paradigm shift to end the crime. Let's stigmatize the offender and not the victims. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this call. We really appreciate all our panelists for taking out time from their busy schedule to be on this call. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to all our guests. Thank you to everyone watching via YouTube. Thank you so much for participating in the LibertyCon Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this past 3 days for the LibertyCon Africa. Thank you so very much. And to our speakers today on the call, Chene Onyango, aka the Rick's Poet, Barrister Banke, Advocate Zainab, who was actually my schoolmate but has forgotten me. Thank you so very much. Please keep in touch with us, follow up with our work at Students for Liberty, and you can check out what we've been up to here in Africa and across the world at www.studentsforliberty.org. We'll be recruiting new leaders very soon, so please be on the lookout. We will send you the information for those of you who are watching us on YouTube and would want to be engaged with us. So we are a movement of young people across the world who believe in speaking up. We just don't argue and complain about issues around our societies. We do something about it. And so join us wherever you are. We have amazing opportunities and trainings that we offer for free that would set you apart from any other student and make you the best leader that you can be around Africa and across the world. Thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your evening and your weekend.
Thank you. It's been interesting.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you, everybody. I guess this is